Step 3, you grow hard about what you want to be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up.
Welcome to Tales from the Field. My name is Bradley Ball, and we are back and better than ever. Today is our third episode of our Live 360 Know Before You Go series. We are joined by Rocky Lagoda. Rocky is here to talk to us all about the cloud and containers track that we're going to have at Live 360. And of course, I am joined by Thomas LaRock. MVP Tom is also the head of the data platform track, but we will get to that a little bit later next month when we're going to have Buck Woody and Bob Ward with us to talk specifically about the things that we're doing in the data platform. So first up, today, we're talking cloud and containers. I'm very, very excited to talk to Rocky about this. There are quite a few different great pre-cons, and then we also have a hands-on lab, and then there's also a post-con that go along with this track. And then we've got a lot of other wonderful sessions that we're going to take a look at and we're going to discuss. This is your first time joining us. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. Make sure and check out the other videos in this series. If you are wondering about the AI track, we had Andrew Burst on, and we talked with Andrew last week. And then the week before that, we did a little bit about Know Before You Go. How do you make it here from the airport? What are your different options, different hotels, different restaurants and things to see in the local area? Of course, it's Orlando. So we had to talk about Disney, but we also had to talk about the Adventure Islands of Adventure and the Universal Studios, because we are just sitting on their back door at the Lowe's Royal Pacific Resort, where the conference will be held in November. So Rocky, thank you so much for joining us. I guess, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, and then please tell us a little bit about Cloud and Containers, Live 360, maybe your history of going there and why this is such a great event. People should.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad to be here. Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm Rocky Latka. I'm the chair of Cloud and Containers Live and a co-chair for VS Live. And I think one of the big things about the event in Orlando that to me is such a great deal is that there's all these different tracks or sub conferences that are part of this thing, and so and when you get your ticket, you can kind of to all of them. And so whether you're primarily a developer or primarily a data person or primarily a cloud or into AI, all these different things that you can reasons that you might attend, and then you look across the agenda and you're like, oh, there's this one session or one speaker that is in a different track that just is really compelling. That's not a problem. You can absolutely go to all of them. And so I think we've got the all the way from security to the development and AI and cloud and infrastructure. So and then on top of all the things that you just mentioned, about just being in Orlando and I love Universal, right? The Harry Potter stuff and whatnot. So
it's fantastic.
It is, right? You can just walk right over there, and then Disney's not that far either. So but I guess I got involved as an attendee. This show in one form or another has been going on for a long time. So I think I attended maybe in 1994, I want to say, back when it was called VBITS, the Visual Basic Technical Insiders. And it was such a fantastic experience. I got involved as a speaker at the event in I want to say 98, 97, something like that. And then a few years later, they asked if I'd start, helping to organize, select speakers and topics. And so I've been doing that ever since. And I love it because we are able to pick such great topics, and we intentionally pick speakers that like to spend time with attendees. And I think that's maybe one of the big differences between this show and a lot of other shows that are out there, where some especially some of the really big shows that Microsoft puts on. The speakers kind of fly in, do their thing, and then they fly out. They got they're very busy people, and a lot of our speakers spend 2 or 3 days at the event and go to lunch with attendees and hang out in the hallways, and so the opportunity to have conversation and dialogue is just unmatched, I think. And to me, that's always, as an attendee, that's always kind of been the big deal about going to conferences. It's like, especially these days, there's so much content just online. So yes, it's about the content, but it's so much of it is about being able to talk to speakers and other attendees and kind of commiserate over your problems and come up with solutions. And
it's accessible. And I love that about VS Live is the speakers are there. There's a speaker party at the beginning of the night on Monday, where specifically we have this dine around. People get to go and they get to hang out. The speakers are there. Anybody can just walk up, talk to you about anything. It happens at the pre-cons. We have the Birds of the Feather luncheon. We have networking sessions where we have people just standing there waiting to be able to talk to folks. And so there's a key thing that you said about that with networking. And I think finding that network is absolutely massive. I remember before I went to my first conference ever, you would put messages. It used to be, back on Twitter, back in the day when Twitter was still good. Everybody was going there for the technical information, but whether it was a blog, whether it was, a YouTube, wherever it was, that's where people were interacting. But once you got to know somebody, it was so much more likely that they would go, oh, that's Brad out there saying that. And I'm going to reply to Brad because I know Brad. Brad's a good dude. And I'm going to see if I can help out with that. And so being able to kind of break down those technical walls that we have built up where we're not in person with one another, or we're using different means of technology to communicate with one another, but we actually get to make that person-to-person contact. I think that is vastly undersold, but that is one of the most important things I think you always get out of technical conferences. Because somebody I know, somebody whose face, I can apply to a name immediately, when they reach out to me, I'm going to find a way to be able to reply to them. Even if I'm super busy, it may take me a day or two, but I'm getting back to you because I know when I see you, I want to be able to talk about whatever it is we've been talking about in line. When you're building that relationship and you want to keep those relationships going. And just one of the best events ever. You are the second person to talk about this going back to the 90s. I thought I was had been involved in this for a long time because I've been around since the first Orlando event in 2010. But when I heard that this went all the way back to the 90s and it was, the name VBits, there's one other thing I want to point and dive in there, but it is so valuable to your career to talk to speakers, to understand how they do things, but to take opportunities to get involved and be a speaker. I found when you speak on a technology, it helps grow your careers in ways that you never imagined and you never dreamed of. And it's a skill that I think is critically important. And anybody the only difference between those of us standing on front of the stage and the people sitting in the seats is that the people in the seats just haven't yet made it to where we are, but they can. And anybody can do this. I was the person sitting in the seats at one point in time, watching people with amazement going, I want to shot at that. I want to do that one day. And so it's a very achievable thing as well. So that networking I find is key.
Well, and I think, and I can't quite remember the exact maxim, but, to teach is to learn twice or something like that, because you learn something and then you're like, oh, I understand this. And then you start putting together a talk or an article or a chapter in a book or, whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. And you realize just how little you actually know. And, you start going, oh yeah, I've got to, understand this little nook and cranny and that little detail. So, because you start anticipating not only, you're going to talk about it, you have to come up with this narrative, and then that people are going to ask questions and you're like, I wonder what the answer to that is. And so, I think that's part of the, you mentioned how it builds people's careers. And some of it is just the becoming a known kind of expert in an area. But I think the bigger part of it is actually becoming an expert. And, there are different paths to do that, but certainly teaching or writing detailed articles or things like that, by definition will set you above most people, because you're forced to learn it at a level of detail most people never do.
You're absolutely right. Well, plus the interaction, those questions, and that's the thing, is there are wonderful questions I got from people in the audience that would push me back to go, well, I don't know this. How do I figure this out? So that way I can get that answer out and make that a part of my talk, make that a part of whatever we're doing. How do I share it via a blog, via a video, whatever? So that way we can get that knowledge out there and disseminate it to people. And it, again, if you love to learn, you're in the right business, because there's never been an IT conference where I've sat there and gone, I don't need to go to that session. It'll be here next year and nothing will change about that tech. I don't think that's ever been the case. Every year, there's always something massively new and different. So
yeah. Even if you look at like last year to this year, and some of the sessions might have similar or maybe even the same title, but the content's not the same, because by definition, there's a new version of whatever out, and or the way we use it has changed, or it's just that is part of the really fun aspect of our industry and our set of career paths in tech is. And you're right, if you don't like to learn, this is the wrong place. But if you do like to learn, man, there's just nothing better.
Absolutely. That reminds me of a story. I don't know if we have time for it though, but I tell you what, I'll come back to it if we do. But the first thing I want to do is I want to talk about some of these great things that we've got going on for the track. So first off, there's a link that Tom LaRock gave me right before this broadcast that has the cloud and containers. As we're looking at some of these sessions, I will make sure and I will go out and I will update our links and I will add it to the page. So if you're looking for those sessions specifically for cloud and containers, that's going to be in the description of the video. So whether you're watching this live or on repeat, it's going to be out there in the next couple minutes. You'll be able to go and find that. But when we look at the big event starts on Sunday. On Sunday with hands-on labs. On Monday, we go to pre-cons. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we have all of our regular sessions, and then we have post-cons on Friday. So let's start on Sunday. If people are coming into town for cloud and containers, and if they're looking to join us, one of the things that they're going to find is that they've got a great hands-on lab to be able to start with. Building microservices applications using .NET on Azure container apps by Gert van der Hurstjen. And I hope that I got Gert's name correct. This is the first time I'm pronouncing out loud. I think I've got a 60-40 job or chance of having hit that correctly. But this is absolutely fascinating because we've all heard the buzz about microservices for years. And so one of the keys is when we're looking at these full day hands-on labs, we're looking at actually building something. And so when you come down here in the bulk of this, and I'm going to double check that my Zoom it is on. And if not, I need to turn it on. There we go. For all of us that need the Zoom to be able to see. So what are you going to learn? You're going to learn about building microservices, applications, using container apps, how to do CI/CD with container apps, about using advanced features like Kenda and Dapper hands-on, and then requirements. You must provide your own laptop computer for this hands-on lab, and all other requirements will be posted 2 weeks prior to the conference. So that is very key to remember. Whenever you're looking at a hands-on lab, you want to make sure and bring your own container. But I love this because one of the keys is not just how do you build correctly? And we've got CI/CD capabilities already in there for this. This looks like a absolutely wonderful hands-on lab to be able to kick off. And as you can see, this starts at 9 a.m., goes to 6 p.m. But there's a lunch, there are breaks scheduled, and I know there's coffee breaks. Typically we have pastries, we have teas. There's all kinds of wonderful little goodies that we have, accoutrements, as we do the break. Not only that, I like how they do the little gong thing to let us know it's not overly massive.
Yeah, right.
Makes me think of being at a spa whenever I want to hear that gong, and I'm like, let's go into the steam room for a little while. That'd be a good break.
Yeah, the great thing too about Geert's talk is, and I do think you did a pretty good job with the name as far as I can tell. But that talk, Kubernetes is like, if you're going to do cloud, you should do Kubernetes. Well, Kubernetes is so complicated. And so the Azure Container Apps is built on top of Kubernetes, but it abstracts it in a way that is much more approachable. Mm-hmm. So basically you get, you get all the advantages of Kubernetes because that's what it's running on. But you don't have to learn all that complexity. And so what a fantastic technology.
Absolutely. Well, and for those that don't understand, I mean, Kubernetes, completely separate platform, right? It's still using kind of a Linux kind of core model underneath the covers, but it is its own operating system. And what it largely does is it abstracts that operating system model. So that way we've got pods, we've got containers. When we look at some of the big businesses that have deployed this, like one of the things I know, there's a case study out there about Chick-fil-A and how when you look at their capability to be able to scale up, scale down, scale their processes, I've heard a lot about their use of Kubernetes. They're one of the big corporations that people look at. Here's how we deploy this, and this is a good model and a good example. But it's a whole different type of process, but it's so incredibly fast. If you've never deployed a container before, it's absolutely amazing because if you think about setting up a VM and all the overhead that goes with setting up a machine, the OS, patching, making sure that you've got everything up to date. And basically you need a YAML file to be able to deploy a container. And once you get that container up and you've got everything packaged within it, I mean, making a copy of that container happens within seconds. If it gets killed in a Kubernetes cluster, its capability to be self-healing and recreate that pod on another Kubernetes node is absolutely fascinating. There are so many amazing technologies with that. But I think from an app dev development, when you're looking at microservices, that's one of the key things I think people always think of, because you're looking for what's an operating system that can work in a distributed manner, that can support that scale level of feature. And then you'll think of bigger things, right? Like Amazon's a good example of that. When we look at microservices, we're talking about how we take something like a big Amazon website. How do we break that up into those little tiny bits? The shopping cart is going to be a service. The checkout is going to be a service. The login is going to be a service. You'll notice that when you go and you did Prime Day, and I know a couple of years ago, it was interesting because they got so much traffic, things were crashing. But it was components of the website that were crashing. The entire website wasn't down. It was them needing to be able to scale the microservices. And then what did they do? They came out with a news story talking about this is the level of scale we had to get because of the volume that we had to push through it. And that's absolutely, because that takes technology, which can be very abstract, especially when we're talking about something like microservices. And it makes it concrete where people can go, oh, so you're saying I can take one aspect of this and I can see 10 people at a restaurant, or I can seat 1,000 people at a restaurant, and I can scale it specifically. But if it goes down, then it's just this one, everything is still up. People can still browse. And it's a very amazing concept for people to be able to look at and figure out how to utilize. So I love this as a track. I'm so glad that you have this because it's really important for people to, and especially in the application field, to understand the containerization of resources, how that works, how you can deploy it. And when we think about it, right, AI models, that's one of the big things that people also can containerize as well. So you can hit a model from an application and you can get those insights returned. So it's not one of those things where it's scoped to only one thing. We have database services, Microsoft. We have the Azure SQL Arc MI, which runs on Arc Kubernetes containers underneath the covers. And I know Postgres has that. MySQL has containerization that they can use within Kubernetes as well. But it's fascinating. Once you get into that eco landscape, you could dive in there and just live your whole technological life in that area and never have to touch Windows or a core Linux foundation. It's fascinating how the world kind of works and begins to evolve around those things.
And to riff off that just a little bit, looking at the Cloud and Containers conference itself, that's kind of the point is exactly what you're saying, because we've got cloud native infrastructure, cloud native security, cloud native development, and cloud native DevOps. are all covered in different talks within the Cloud and Containers Live, because that's the nature of the whole cloud thing. Is it's yes, we use it to build software, but you need people that can actually make it go, because it is an operating system, right? You need the infrastructure folks that can make it go. You need the DevOps specialists that really understand how to set up the continuous deployment and everything else. And at the end of the day, you need it to be secure. So you totally can spend your entire career just being within the context of the cloud world.
And that's the great thing, because at Live 360, you could be coming for, say, Visual Studio Live, but then there's something in Cloud and Containers that you absolutely love. There's a session that really piques your interest and I want to go sit in that. And I mean, that's part of the price of admission. You can go walk into any room that you want to walk into. So we talked a little bit about Sunday. So moving on over to Monday. So first up for Cloud and Containers, we have Scott Sandberg, and Scott has building and deploying a .NET 9 app using Azure Bicep and GitHub Actions. So what's fascinating about this is we go from sitting in one world where we're looking at the containerization of services and things of that nature, to next we're looking at how we deploy a .NET 9 app using Bicep and GitHub Actions, which is a key part of that CI/CD process. And so when you look at this, and this is the great thing about the website, again, the link is in the description of the video. So you'll always get these two sections. What are you going to learn, and any requirements? So what you're going to learn about basics on Azure services and Bicep, GitHub Actions, how to use it, and then how to leverage Bicep and GitHub Actions to deploy an app to Azure, and various best practices involved. And so these are these all-day courses where we've got the time to not just cover a topic in a very topical way, but where you get to go in depth. You get that time with these instructors. You get the time with someone like Scott, who really knows their stuff. So that way you can dive into these topics and figure out how does this work best for me? How do we utilize this? And again, the variance that we have just is not only in the talent of speakers, but it's also there for the community of attendees to be able to find what they're interested in, what they would like. Now, even though I know it's not part of Cloud and Containers, it wasn't part of the link that Tom sent me, I would be derelict in duty, Rocky, if I didn't bring up your pre-con that's also happening on Monday. Microsoft Blazor, top to bottom. Of course, you've got two wonderful MVPs, Jason Bach and Alan Conway, for this, and yourself. And so what you're going to learn in this, well, I should probably just hand it over to you. It's your pre-con, so you can tell us what we're going to learn in this.
It is a lot of fun, and like I was saying earlier, these things change. We're constantly updating our content because Blazor, as a relatively young technology, is still changing pretty fast. And but yeah, basically we assume. And usually what we find is about a third of our audience has never used it. So we start from scratch, spend a little time in the morning, saying, okay, if you've never used it, here's how it works. Here's the basics and so forth. And then we, over time, dive into how do you do CSS styling in different ways, which can get really complicated, and how to do authorization, authentication, which also can get really complicated. And we talk a lot about Blazor 8 and now 9 that's about to come out have this really and it was new in Blazor 8. It's not new, I suppose, anymore, but rendering model where things will start rendering statically on the server and then switch to be interactive on the server and then switch to be interactive on the client. And it's kind of like magic. And but you definitely have to know what's going on. And so we definitely focus quite a bit on basically making sure that by the end of the day, you feel very comfortable being able to implement business apps using Blazor and all of its cool features. So that's the goal.
That's amazing. I love that. That's so cool to hear about. I started off my life as an IT developer, and just the idea that you could render something on the server, make it more interactive on the client. I mean, look, I get it. It's technology, but what's the old phrase that anything that is sufficiently advanced technology looks like magic?
Mhm.
I mean, that just in my brain, I'm like, oh my goodness, the fact that we have that capability, it's a little bit like the magic. That's amazing.
It really is. And Microsoft, like I said, you do have to know what's going on, but once you understand how it works and how to structure your code to take advantage of it, Microsoft did, or the Blazor team did such a beautiful job. And yeah, you're right. I think it was Arthur C. Clarke, if I remember right, that came up with that quote, and it really applies. I mean, it really is just, it's like, wow.
It's so cool the age that we're in, and just to see the evolution. I remember when we were doing, ASP Classic with VB6 com objects, and where we've gone from there to today. I mean, this is white for a reason. I'm old, but where we've gone from there to today is nothing short of amazing. And speaking of, I want to make sure that we give a quick shout out before we get into the regular session events to Friday. On Friday, the postcon for cloud and containers is real world CI/CD with GitHub Actions beyond the basics with Chris Ayers. Chris is actually a teammate of mine on the Azure Fast Track team. I've worked with Chris with multiple different customers, some small customers, some very, very big customers. And Chris is one of those top minds. Anytime I have a CI/CD question, Chris is one of those first people that I go to. I'm very, very excited. He's also super active in the community. They just had the Tampa Bay Dev Days last week, and Chris helps put that together. He's just an absolutely fantastic guy, but he is just so unbelievably smart. And so if you're using GitHub as your repository, that's one of the big things to keep in mind. You need to figure out how you're utilizing CI/CD actions, how you're using this in a professional environment for your business. And so that looks like that's exactly what you're going to learn with Chris. You're going to learn GitHub Actions and workflows, about advanced features, and also about secure deployments, because we've got to make sure that we're secure in the way that we deploy things from our development environment into our QA, whatever we have, that mid-level environment to pre-prod to prod. Things are never going to get to a point in time where they're less secure. We're just not in a world where they're going to go, you know what? No more passwords. We're good, everybody. Leave the doors unlocked. It's okay. So
we are apparently moving into no more passwords.
Well, that's a good point. I said that and I went, yeah, multi-factor authentication.
But yeah, we're not leaving the doors open. We're figuring out clever ways to keep them even more shut. So
exactly. I think with that, you would say we're removing the handles from the doors. They just have to either magically open or they don't.
Like Star Trek, right? It's like
absolutely. So when we look at that, there's also the larger agenda, and this is what we've got linked to over on the description of the video. So we went through Sunday, Monday, and we went through Friday. But Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, you've got a host of other sessions. You've got events, networking events. Also, Tom and I, we were talking about it. Rocky, do you have any great memories of the luau? Because the luau is always a lot of fun when you get to go to that. I believe that's Wednesday night, right, Tom? Yeah. That's when you'll be dancing. Wednesday I mean, night. If someone nominates you, you'll be dancing.
Yeah, you probably won't see me dancing, but the dessert buffets and the entertainment is absolutely top notch, and the fact that you can just kind of walk right over there because it's part of the whole resort complex, and yeah, they do a really nice job. And yeah, most of my memories revolve around trying to control myself with the different desserts. That's because they have
so much great free cake, and it's a wonderful place to be able to bring families. We've talked about this before, but it's going to be decorated for Christmas because we're there the week before Thanksgiving, and the Christmas stuff will be full effect. Santa's going to have a parade going through Main Street and Universal Studios. And it's a wonderful time. We see so many people bring their families to this, and there's always families at the dessert luau to be able to enjoy that luau, but also to be able to enjoy the different treats. There's a really lovely fire pit that I always see families in over to the right-hand side. It's just a wonderful time for everybody that's involved. So
Really
I'm going to say, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say that really is, I think, a characteristic of the Orlando event that is unlike, because VS Live has other events throughout the year in different cities. But yeah, this one, the number of people that bring their families, and when my kids were little, we would bring our kids too. And I mean, that's one of the big benefits, right? You're already going down to Orlando. You're already going to get all this fantastic content and great experience with speakers. But then you can, if you want, have all that fun with your family and your kids, and seeing the wonder, even like the luau. There's just so much there, and then watching your kids have that experience. It's I always found it to be very rejuvenating. Right?
Absolutely. Well, whenever I think about it, right, the two biggest theme parks in the world are Disney and Universal Studios. And you've got them sitting right next to one another. And we are literally on the grounds of Universal Studios. We're part of the resort hotels. You're in walking distance to their downtown area with all of that dining. You've got the boat that can go, out. As a matter of fact, when we do the dine around Monday night, I'm always on the group that walks. I feel like the walking group gets there much faster than the boat group. But you could take either. And we walk right over there. I don't know where we're going to be this year, but last year we were on the balcony of the Hard Rock. And typically you don't, as a tourist, you can go inside, you can eat, but you don't get access to the areas that we get access to at the Hard Rock. I mean, so even that's a very special experience. The capability, I think last year we were very lucky. We were able to go into the linen room. And I don't mean linen clothing wise. I mean, John Lennon, where they've got a lot of his commemorative items and his records and his guitars. And there's a balcony from there where you just get to see the whole Universal area. I'd never seen the Universal area from that spot before. It's fantastic. And so it's a wonderful place to be able to come, to be able to do that networking, to be able to learn, to be able to have a great week with your family as well. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Rocky. I appreciate you being here. I think we're a little bit over time, so I'm going to go ahead and take us off. But is there anything you want to throw out before we go?
I just appreciate the time that you've given me here, and I just really hope to see a lot of folks that are listening to this come down to Orlando, and if you do, come up and say hi to any of us that are chairs or speakers. And I have so much fun just interacting with attendees and other speakers and having those conversations. And I have made over the years friends. Some of the people that we're talking about as speakers are friends of mine, and I've got friends all over the world. And you can have that opportunity too, right? Is to build those friendships with other attendees and with speakers, and it's just such a rewarding experience. And so I look forward to seeing a lot of folks there.
Absolutely. Some people look at it like summer camp. Forget summer camp. This is like that special holiday camp that you get to go to and have fun at, and then you leave next week and you celebrate Thanksgiving. Tom, anything from you, sir?
Yeah, you guys have said it all, really. Orlando's probably the best location for a lot of reasons, but I think primarily the fact that we have those 6 events in one. Because IT professionals these days, we talk about how you have to be that T. You have a depth in one and breadth in others. And just being able to cross-pollinate and go to these other events, because even if you can't attend a session, the people with the experience will be there to answer your question. So if you're somebody like you got to run SQL Server in a container, you're going to be running on Linux, people with that experience, not just that, but people who work for Microsoft with that experience will be there that we can connect you with, and you get the answer that you need. There's just so much value and opportunity in the Orlando event, and it really can't be overstated, honestly. But looking forward to it as always.
Thank you. So thank you all for joining us so much. I'm Bradley Ball from Tales from the Field. Thank you to Rocky for joining us. I can't wait to see you there, sir. Tom, always a pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks, where we will once again be talking about the wonderful Live 360, and we'll be picking a new track to be able to talk about.
Who's our guest? Who's the next guest?
So the next guest, so next time, and I'm very excited about this, we're talking about cybersecurity and ransomware. And we got Sammy Leo and Dave Koala.
Right.
So yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. I've already got more sessions that I want to attend than I have the physical presence to be able to be in. I'm going to go into half of my sessions and be like, you know what? There's a really great one going on. I'll leave right now. I'm just kidding. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us. Take care and be good to one another out there. Bye, everybody.
I try to do this every day, call it replication. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up,